All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Howler Mouse channel. I'm Howler Mouse. This is a channel that's been around forever. I've collected comics forever. And when we woke up this morning on January 4th, 2025, we knew the snow was coming. We knew winter weather was coming, but it is 17 degrees outside, wind chill factor of about 1 degree. So we're not going anywhere. And we decided that, this is the 40th anniversary of Crisis on Infinite Earths by DC Comics. Why not do a spontaneous show before I do other things around the house while it warms up? Um, and I'm just so happy to be here because Crisis on Infinite Earths was one of those books that I had started reading the stepdad and the uncle's collection in 1977 when I was 4. You longtime viewers have all heard it before. And I ended up being a bit more of a DC guy, things like that. And then in 1982, there was a Justice League number of America 207 with the Crime Syndicate on the cover, floating heads all around, and George Pérez cover. And we had the Crime Syndicate coming after the Justice League right on the cover, and it ended up being a Crisis of Two Earths story, crossover with All-Star Squadron. And it was at that age of 9 years old, that I looked around, saw the comic books around the room that were actually mine, that I had bought myself. And I was like, I guess I'm a comic book collector. Actual words went through my head. So when Crisis on Infinite Earths came out when I was 12 years old, I was 11 when it started in January of 1985. And then I was 12 years old when it ended in December of 1985. What a great time to be a kid and feel. There was a feeling I had. I didn't have the words where it was like I was justified or, for being a DC fan after having this grand comic book opera of all things, on a scale that had never been seen before. And it blows my mind it's been 40 years before. So I pulled out my box to go through. See how old this box is? Look at that. That is the Crisis books. I bought each one off the stand as they came out. Number 4, I could not find forever. And if you go to at the time of this recording of this live show, if you go to my channel page, the actual video I have up, as soon as you open it up, tells the tale of what I had to do to go get to acquire Crisis on Infinite Earths number 4. It was quite a journey, quite a battle, going through a soggy, swampy marsh, if you will, in the middle of winter with my friends. Okay, and that comic book survived, right? So I'm going to show those books. I'm going to kind of show briefly. See where we're going. It's totally spontaneous from memory from a person that was there. Good morning, Victor Shade. Good morning. So usually John, I've probably got John off of, kind of probably zigzagged on John there a little bit, or, of course, John has a life, but John is usually the first person that pops up on here. And this morning we have Victor Shea. So be like John and Victor, guys. Thumb up the video, share it, comment on it, subscribe to the channel, because I actually looked at my analytics and it blew my mind. 73% of my views, I think, this is just popping in my head. 73% of the people popping in, and it's been fantastic considering how old this channel is that people still want to watch. But 73% of you guys are not subscribed, so subscribe. Join the Howler Mouse Club. Join us all here. This is a place where we read our comics and we talk about our comics. And 99% of the time we love our comics, right? So good morning, Victor. Thanks for popping in there, right? So let's just jump into it as a 12-year-old. Let's bring in Crisis Cam. We have Crisis Cam with us this morning. If you hear a heater in the background, let me know. I'll turn it off. Like I said, it's 17 degrees outside with about a 1% wind chill factor on my side of the mountain here. So say good morning. Hello. Look at that right there. So what I'm going to show you right off the bat here, and we're going to work through the glares and stuff because we're live. These things happen. Is I was such a lover of comics that my mother's friends knew. And they knew the stepdad was also, but a lot of people didn't like him, right? So they brought it to me, right? And this is a paper that an article from a paper I'm trying to track down. You guys can do the math with me, right? So I'm sitting at home. I think school let out. We're living in this little 2-bed apartment with 4 or 5 people in it. And I've got my, shelf of comics at the time, and everything like that. And one of my mom's friends come over. It is either a Bristol, Tennessee / Virginia paper or a Bluefield, West Virginia paper. And in the midst of it, they had this article. By God, comic books had made the mainstream in my eyes, right? This thing has evaporated over years. This thing is just starting to rot. A corner has come off. But I actually went to the Bristol, Virginia Library, going through their microfiche of all things, trying to find this article, get another part of it, right? But it's announcing that in July, 3 months from when this article was published, Supergirl is going to die. And this article has things in it, a direct interview with Marv Wolfman and Jim Shooter, of all people. And this article has things in it you will not find in Amazing Heroes or Wikipedia. Wikipedia, right now, as we speak, and for years has the dates wrong. They did the cover dates on the actual comics, saying that this series ran from April of 1985 to May of 1985. I assure you it was January to December of 85. This was an 1985 event. So they went ahead, and this thing was selling so well. And what they were trying to do with this series of reinventing the entire DC universe, making one Earth to get rid of the multiverse, it made the paper. It got that much attention. So yeah, I'm trying to find that paper. So this is the great thing about growing up with comics and having these things. You will not find this on the internet. If you find it on the internet, let me know. Go to Instagram, Howler Mouse on Instagram, real serious, and let me know you found this. And that would be great. I'm tracking that, trying to track. Like I said, when I have time and I have to go out of town, I'm trying to track this down. So this article may be something that I put on Instagram at some point, and I have carried that around since, what would that be, May of 1985, guys. I'm ready to replace it. The corner that rotted off had the paper in the date, which is why I'm trying to track it down. All right. So let's look at the books, and we're going to do a little bit of a dive here. Like I said, this is completely spontaneous. We're going to do a little bit of a dive. So first of all, these are the actual issues, guys. This is them. This is the actual issues, right? So I have Amazing Heroes, just to give you an example here. A prequel of Crossing the Infinite Earths and what happened after Infinite Earths. And believe it or not, there was a bit of a conspiracy going around. Marvel's Secret Wars had come out in 1984. That was a series designed to sell toys as a maxi series, a 12-issue maxi series, when maxi series were still new. Okay, you had Camelot 3000, you had Green Arrow, you had sort of the Atom, whatever Marvel was doing, 4-issue miniseries, very few 12-issue maxi series. This was still a new deal. By any means, it was not. Even that article I just showed you, the idea germinated of DC Comics taking their multiverse, Earth X, Earth S, Earth 1, 2, 3, Infinity, and things. I, as a young kid, loved that. I had no problem having the Shazam family live on their Earth and having the Golden Age characters, which are my preference even back then, on their own Earth, on Earth 2. I had no problems following this. And still always have an affinity for the bad guys. So I've always been a Crime Syndicate fan, right? So there's a couple things that happened. People started yelling that. Even my stepdad, when I showed him that first issue of Crossing Infinite Earths, he was like, look at that. He was a Marvel guy, a Kirby guy, which is the only thing we really had in common. And he was a Marvel zombie all the way, right? He always told me you always traded 2 DCs for a Marvel if you're going to do that, right? This was his advice, right? So anyway, but these articles say that the idea of Crisis germinated around 80, according to the paper, 81 from other sources. But what happened is Marv Wolfman was editor of Green Lantern books. I guess someone wrote in a letter and had questions about the Golden Age Green Lantern and the Modern Age Green Lantern. They did this and did that. And the sales on top of this also started dipping a little bit on Teen Titans. And he felt like it was because we're not reader friendly, and the way DC writes books, a lot of people consider old fashioned. So they started the idea of Crisis on Infinite Earths. I've always heard 1980, possibly 81, and it took research. This was actually supposed to come out around 82 at one point. There's some Amazing Heroes or Comics Journal or something that actually mentioned the Crisis in 1981. I've never tracked that down nor had an inclination. So basically, what happened is that they hired Pete Sanderson, who got the greatest job in the world because he ended up doing it for two companies. He got the job to do research. He took 2 years approximately, going by memory, going by these articles and whatnot. It took about 2 years to read and take notes on every issue of DC Comics, and made little notes. And you can see that quick little research he did in who's in the who's who in the DC universe. They didn't waste all of that, right? So they really tried to get in here, and nothing like this had been done before on this scale. They didn't know if anything was going to sell. They had someone else. Oh, I need to look up the article, but I have an interview with George Pérez where he talks about I was not the original artist, but I wanted it. Plus, he got a break from the Titans, and this was an opportunity for him to draw every character in the DC universe, which was their goal. So they turned around and got this thing together after stumbling blocks, getting with editorial, and this thing turned into an event that had never been seen. It just happened to align where they were like, we're so close to the 50th anniversary, let's do it. So this thing was delayed. Now, what's the significance of what I'm showing you here? Sorry about the glares here, guys. I did spontaneous, didn't really set up well, but I want you to look at this. I believe it was 2013, and I had the opportunity to go to Heroes Con again. Broke as can be, I mean, it's face it, I made it work, don't get me wrong. Wasn't destitute, but and George Pérez and Marv Wolfman are there, and I'm going to go see them, right? And this is me, right? I had the opportunity to pull out God knows what. Teen Titans #1, my mint copies of Crisis. These are the beat up ones that I bought as a kid. And I'm not about that, man. I'm taking the actual books I have, and hopefully the line will not be too big to where I can get them signed by Marv Wolfman and George Pérez. Now, around I can't remember what it was, maybe issue 5 or 6 or something, Jerry Ordway came in and took over the inking chores from Dick Giordano. And I've met Jerry Ordway 2 or 3 times, and I wished I thought to get him to sign those. That's just me talking, whatever. Let's move on. But I got my original beat up issues of Crisis on Infinite Earth signed by George Pérez and Marv Wolfman. And Marv Wolfman, I ended up asking him what was the deal with Total Eclipse, because for Total Eclipse Comics, around 88 or 89, had their 10-year anniversary, and Marv Wolfman came in and did their version of Crisis on Infinite Earths for him. He said that was a mistake. That was a favor for a friend. And those characters are not meant to go together, and he did what he could for it, which was fantastic. So Crisis is the series that made it popular, of the company company-wide comic book crossovers. And man, growing up in this era was fantastic as a kid. We had the Morlock Massacre really get things going. We had Secret Wars 2, but for me, Morlock Massacre was the one where it felt like it gelled, where they had other series crossing over, which led to all the X-Men events for me. But then with these guys at DC, this is the one. This is supposedly the second issue of John Constantine, and I went through literal hell for it as a 12-year-old to get this book. This is the one that actually stunned me with all the heads on here. I actually counted the heads at one point. This is Earth 1 characters, Earth 2, and the 2 that the Flash, Superman, Green Lantern, all the ones that exist, he puts on here. What I liked about this is that they stayed current. John Stewart, before Guy Gardner was about to come around the corner, was the Green Lantern. And we made sure we had Green Lantern fused with Alan Scott, the Golden Age Green Lantern. But these covers with what George Pérez was doing is just amazing. But anyway, like I said, this led to Legends with the crossover, Millennium, which just thumbs down on that one, Invasion. Um, just this, I thought it was fantastic. I know it was money grabs, but guys, you got to remember back then, comics were 75 cents, 65 cents, 45 cents, um, up to a dollar. By 1991, they were like $1.75, right? So to have these signed by George, to get a picture with George Perez, I have of all the people, comic book creators that I have met, George Perez was the warmest person. He jumped up, gave me, pulled me in kind of like a hug for the picture so hard. I had stubbled beer burn from the man. And I was hoping that DNA would actually filter through to give me an ounce of his talent. George Perez, weirdly enough, is somebody I get very emotional about when I look at his art. I'm currently up to issue 31 of the new Teen Titans, rereading his stuff. I'm going to talk about these issues real quick. Everybody needs to see what we have here. Okay. But like I said, to have these signed by Marv Wolfman and George Pérez, very personal, and really, I'm so grateful to have these, the actual ones I had. Now, for you guys that don't know where to start with the crossovers and stuff, you can get a little thing called the official index of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And another one, the official Crisis on Infinite Earths cross. Okay, this is the issues for the 12 issues of Crisis on Infinite Earths. George Pérez cover, right? This is the one where we go over all the crossovers in the comics at this time, so you know what comics to get. This was new. So let me break some of this down for you, right, on how to read this. One of the biggest things that I've seen over the years are newer collectors or collectors who weren't there in the 80s to read this will sit down and they will get the trade with this amazing George Pérez, Alex Ross cover. I would love to have the poster of this one day, but I would have to build a whole new wall to put it on. They will sit down and try to read this straight through like a modern comic with its decompressed storytelling. No, these comics were designed to where when you read this, I suggest trying to read this in 4 parts. This is a 3-part story, okay, is how I see it. Issues 1 through 4, 6 through 8, 9 is your interlude with the villains, and then 10 through 12. It's a 3-act play, okay? That's how I suggest you read this, because this is in the day where we were given stories that came out monthly with a cliffhanger. We don't want to see my face, do we? Let's switch this around, guys. There we go. This is what you come to see. Oh, wow. This is cool. I've got the huge poster and it's framed in museum glass. So epic. Oh, I am both envious and very happy for you. That is fantastic. So the first issue where we get a prelude, we get introduced to a new character named Pariah, who seems to travel from Earth to Earth as they are getting destroyed. But basically, the antimatter is coming through all these universes of the multiverse, destroying them. And the first one we see is Earth 3. So right off the bat, they tug me at the heartstrings because I absolutely loved these versions of the characters. Earth 3 is the crime syndicate. Earth 3, the heroes are the villains, and they win. But basically, we see just the Earth blowing up, volcanoes popping up, people dying. Lex Luthor, their one hero, is trying to help people, save people. And we go all the way back to the beginning of 1938, where Lois Lane and Alex take their son, put him in a rocket ship, and send him to Earth, crossing the vibrational planes, all the multiverses, separated vibrations. So we get a recreation of Superman, Kal-El's original origin story with Alexei Luthor, who is made of matter and antimatter. So as you can see, this is dense reading, and you have to take your time from issue to issue. And of course, you need to enjoy George Perez's art. And amazingly enough, Ultraman, the main villain here with the crime syndicate, ends up realizing they should have been heroes and protected these people. So even against the nature of physics of existential physics. In other words, Superman will always be a hero everywhere, exactly how it's supposed to be. All right. So basically, we see what we're seeing, and then there's the summoning. And much like Lord of the Rings, we have the Antimatter having a plan, and he has a set of heroes that do stage one of his plan, even though we don't know it. We get introductions. We actually start out small, and that's the idea of what we need to do with this series. You need to sit down and take your time with it. So we go to the second issue, and we get caught very up. We're hooked. And this book, each issue gets bigger and bigger. Marv Wolfman did this fantastically, is that a word even? The man was magic with his storytelling. He was able to lay the seeds down and spread this out over 12 issues to where each issue managed to get bigger and bigger and bigger. The Flash is popping up, decompressing. We have foreshadowing. We have Batman, the Joker. This is the DC universe. So take your time with these when you read it, and we have our plan here. Okay. Now, before we move on, what you need to realize is that for several years, the Monitor would pop up in various comics. Okay. And you would find out that he was like a weaponeer, a provider of weapons to the villains. So let me go through here. Let me find some crossovers. One that I know he's in. Here we go. Now, this is a very important issue. Superman, the Unforgotten Villains, right? So starting in, there's a list somewhere on the internet of all the appearances of the Anti-Monitor, but you never saw what he looked like. You would see Lesia, who become Harbinger. You see her walking around, this beautiful blonde walking around, and all you would see was like Dr. Claw on Inspector Gadget. You just saw his hands, and looking at monitors and pushing buttons and his little bubbles. Okay. So this is the last issue, not the last issue, but this is the last cameo appearance of the Monitor. And actually, this book goes straight into Crisis on Infinite Earths #1 of all the books. DC Comics presents number 78. I loved the Forgotten Villains, the action comics that Gil Kane and Marv Wolfman were doing, where you had the Forgotten Heroes, and then we got the sequel here, a 2-part sequel where Forgotten Villains popped up from the Silver Age and Bronze Age. He writes this fantastic story that leads straight into Crisis. So there's what we saw of Lesia. This is all we ever saw of the Anti-Monitor, the chair in the hands. And he says here, our true purpose here has begun. Now scan Earth 3 after the trouble we have sensed begins there. And that leads right into issue #1 that we saw. So for several years, we were doing that, and we find out that he was testing people. He was experimenting with the heroes and the villains to see who he would need for his grand plans. All right. So that's what I'm saying. This thing was actually structured very well. So the biggest thing I'm saying is that you have to take your time with these issues. Take your time enjoying them, reading them. Okay, it's a very dense tale. And then we have the crossovers that come up. This was an investment as a 12-year-old who was also just starting to play D&D that year. This was just fantastic. This is great. We're incorporating everywhere. The Great Disaster, the Kirby thing. And issue 2 really blew me away because Commandy is on the cover. Seeing George Pérez draw, this is Commandy climbing these towers. And the Anti-Monitor has put these towers throughout the multiverse for a vibrational frequency for a purpose. And we find out it's the last stand of the last, I believe, 5 Earths that will survive, right? Because the Anti-Monitor, there's an unknown phantom menace, if you will, in the background hiding there, right? And just seeing Commandy pop into this, if I was not hooked from the first issue, now I'm hooked. I've been a Commandy lover since about 1980 when Jack Kirby art stopped scaring me. I've told that story before, right? So now we're all over the place. At time, we're traveling. They're popping up not only in the multiverse, but they're traveling through time. The Psycho Pirate shows up, who I knew already from a Justice League crossover with the JSA in like issue 195, 6, and 7, or something like that, right? And it just builds up and builds up. Now we're getting Latveria and Geoforce. Not Latveria, it's another place, Markovia, I believe. But now we're getting into like the books I was reading at the time and the continuity that they did have. Their Prince Brian is Geoforce of the Outsiders, and they go back in time in the 40s. Geoforce had actually mentioned about the German invasion in World War II years before in Batman the Outsiders, and here they are with Sergeant Rock with the Crisis and stuff, right? Things are building and crossing over, and you have no idea where they're going. The artwork gets better. We have the Flash in the future who had just been, I remember these books. What was going? Flash had just been convicted of murder, and there's reason. We get the Outsiders and the Teen Titans crossing over again. If you'd read the series, trying to save the world because that, everything is falling apart, and they're trying to save as many people as they can, and they're starting to notice there's more than one. So all the heroes are crossing over. Blue Beetle from Charlton Comics had already debuted in #1, so the Charlton characters were coming. And we end with so many characters. Jonah Hex, they're losing. The antimatter is still coming through, still killing loved characters. And all of a sudden we get a betrayal, which is part of the story. We get into issue 4. And then this is the first issue where I started seeing things that could have been. Of course, there should have been a book with Batgirl and Supergirl, because if you go back and watch the Killing Joke show I did with Gore Vidal 2-3 days ago, nobody was really a huge Batgirl fan. Guys, she was not anything until Killing Joke. Okay, if you were around and you were a Batgirl fan, you were part of a niche. That's cool, man. You know what I mean? Nothing wrong with it. But this is when the artwork really started blowing me away. The moodiness. It's like George Pérez really got a handle on what he was doing. You could just feel the joy of what he was doing with this book. And this will end the first arc, the first act of the story, because it ends on a where the hell do they go from this? Because they lose. That's just it. You're like, what? They basically lose. They don't know what's going on. The Anti-Monitor is killed right there. And looks like all the Earths are destroyed. And you're like, there's 8 more issues of this. Where the hell do you go? Guys, this was how you have to read the book. You've got to take your time with it and get in there. And I'm not going to do an overview of all the chapters, but that's first 4. You follow where I'm going? This is why it blows me away. To me, when I read it, this is the end of one story. They lost. And you have no idea where they're going to go before. Nothing like this had been done. And it was genius. It was genius to break down on a scale. Marv Wolfman did not have a blueprint or anything on how to do this. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to say. This was new. This was, unreal. Okay. So while all that, let me do some comments. I'm going to grab a few books here. Right. We're going to slow down there. Let me get these out of the way. Oh, what a great time. I'll give you something to look at here. All right. Victor Shade is right there on it. We got so much bang for the buck back then. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So much story, and Perez would be over the top with the characters and panels. We were spoiled. Well, yeah, we were spoiled, and Perez, what George Pérez gave to it in this book, it's one thing to do a job and come in and draw a bunch of characters and stuff, but George was able to. It's kind of like food. I'm a big believer, and I thought this before I heard that it was already a belief, as a kid. But if you are in a bad mood and somebody is the person that and you cook, that mood will energy or whatever. I hate saying it like that because but anyway, we'll go in that food and it will make people sick. You could just that's what George was able to do. You could feel the absolute fun he was having doing this, and then he was able to back off with a few scenes and let it be a mood. And like I said, issue 4 is where I feel like he really took off. Hey, Afro SX, how are you? SF, how are you? I love when Psychopart made Killer Frost fall in love with Firestorm. Nice. Okay, we have some memories. We have people that have been there to read this, right? So as I've shown here, you've had crossovers. Let's go over some of those. Like I said, this is all off the boot. All right. Wow, there's a bunch, guys. Hold on. I'm coming. Oh, well, we'll just go with this. Okay. Wow. Never realized there were so many. Now you're like, wait a minute. That doesn't look like it's from the 80s. Well, that's because it's not. This was I think it was 7 issues that came out right before DC 52 was about to hit, where Len Wein did the entire story of the DC proper universe history right before DC 52 hit, if I remember right. And these were fantastic. And 2 issues were dedicated to Crisis to catch people up. So this still has been influential, and there are still books that were coming out every now and then. If you had a sharp eye, these books are hopefully showing up. You can see they connect, and they captured 1985 perfectly, right? I mean, look at this, right? So you can go back and read this. Len Wein, George Pérez, Walt Simonson, Len Wein, Jerry Ordway, Keith Giffen, Collins. They have backup features in them also, guys. But you have this one has a Strange Adventures backup story. This one has a Legion of Superheroes, but it's Crisis and a Crisis aftermath of what happened, right? So yeah, these are unofficial. These are official crossovers in my mind to catch you up. All right, but you can see I get multiple. And I found these in dollar bins all the time. Marv Wolfman went back and did an untold story of Crisis, and it's titled The Untold Story, where Flash goes to, God, what was it, Earth C or something? But he goes to another Earth that was kind of forgotten, where basically there's very few white people as heroes, and that's what it comes down to. There's no other way to put it. Legends of the DC Universe, Crossing of Earth, special number 1. I would love to say that this really adds to the story, but no, not really. I'm not quite sure why this was put out, but I liked it. It's a satisfying read if you're a Marv Wolfman or a Crisis fan, but not. That's what I'm saying. Not. It doesn't really have to be. JLA Incarnations number 5. We get to see the Justice League Detroit, what was going on with them, the darkest days. This was a series that explored different eras of the Justice League. And I have a video from like 12 years ago or something where I explained my absolute hate of Justice League Detroit. If you want to put in Howler Mouse and Justice League Detroit and it stinks or something, every now and then I still get a little kickback or agreement from that video. It blows my mind how my older stuff still people could sit through it, considering I was on a potato can with horrible sound, but that was the early days. Now you'll see that some of these crossovers will not have Crisis on Infinite Earths across the top of it, right? And that's fine. You can get online and find a list of crossovers that did not have the banner for Crisis on Infinite Earths. I was there already reading some of these comics, keeping an eye out. I already knew that Guy Gardner had come back out of his coma in Crossing Infinite Earths on 2-3 panels. So, of course, I would pick up anything, right? So, 196, and you can see that these are in different conditions, and I pick them up whenever. 194, 195, that's an important one. 197 that I cannot find. I might have to try to buy it back. Now that Guy Gardner is in a movie, let's just hope I don't pay a freaking arm and a leg for it, because I will not. Well, we don't have to hope. I won't do it. Let's just hope it's not that much. 198, and I recommend up to issue 200. 199. This was a big one that I looked up at. I was already collecting DC Comics Presents, right? I was a Superman fan. I'm still a Superman fan, right? But I wasn't one of those guys that I thought people just had a lack of imagination when they complained about writing a character that's too powerful in their mind, right? But anyway, we got this fantastic issue number 87 of what would become Superboy Prime, who would become a major villain under Jeff Johns years later. But Superman travels to Earth Prime. I already knew what Earth Prime was, thanks to that Justice League All-Star Squadron crossover I was talking about. Earth Prime is us. We read these comics and we know everything about these characters, and we get a new Superboy from Earth Prime. It's just fantastic. I thought this was a really cool story. This would inspire Kurt Busiek to do Secret Identity, probably like, I don't know, 25 years later, I think, 4-issue miniseries of Clark Kent of Earth Prime, I guess, in the real world, which was, I highly recommend that. I've got a review from years ago on it. It's one of my favorite, if not favorite, Superman story. I got a couple of these. This book was like a huge key there for a while, you know. A fantastic crossover event, Swamp Thing number 46. I highly recommend this because we find out that not only is there a crisis in the physical world, but the crisis is also affecting the spiritual world. And Swamp Thing, by this time, Alan Moore had done so much with him that he becomes our eyes. We're the traveler with him. And there's a fantastic scene in issue, I think 5 or 6, where it's a 2-page spread on the Monitor's ship. And there's tons of superheroes there. And as the Swamp Thing is walking through that, being beckoned to meet with the Anti-Monitor himself, much like a VIP at a concert is what it feels like. He talks about it feels like he's walking through Mardi Gras with all these superheroes he's walking through. He really stands out by this point. But this is just fantastic. And this leads up to issue 50, where people want to claim that is the first appearance of Justice League Dark, which it's not. The Blue Devil, fun books. He meets the Omega Man, another Danny Cassidy and stuff, right? These are fun issues. There's a little bit of levity there with all the heavy stuff going on. The Losers Special. Yes, the Losers. Big tie-in. I appreciate it now more than I did then. The Omega Man. I had to track this down years later. This was a direct series, right? And what is this? I have all but I think one of the Batman and the Detective series. There's books that are considered crisis crossovers simply because they have the red skies and for no other reason. Okay, you just see the storms and the red skies, much like this issue of Detective Comics. That's why these are considered. And the red skies were in several of the DC books I was picking up back then. 556. Like I said, I think I need one more issue, and I keep forgetting to look it up. And of course, the crisis tie-ins. We have a character, Cole. 40-year-old spoiler, guys, right? Cole was created just so Marv Wolfman could kill her off, have another death in the Teen Titans. George Pérez had went on hiatus from the Titans to do the Crisis books, and we had Philip Jose Farmer come on, Philip Jose Garcia Lopez. Excuse me, I always do that. I mix up Philip Jose Farmer, his name, and Philip Jose Garcia Lopez. That's my life, man. Here's the Forgotten Heroes that I just showed. I got to get these back in order. I consider these Crisis crossovers because they lead into it. DC Comics presents Superman and the Creeper. Some of these you really need. Oh, look at that. Yeah, multiples. If I see them, I grab them, my guys. And then we had a little bit of an aftermath. This was after Crisis was over, but what happened to Lady Quark, Harbinger, and Pariah? And yes, that is a post-Crisis blockbuster. And I believe that is a George Pérez cover, guys. So, yeah, they're out there. Yeah, another issue here. And like I said, the red skies at night and everything like that plays into it. So for some reason, this is a Crisis crossover. Supergirl, with her death coming up, we find out that she was secretly married, and there was a lot of things going on with her. Amethyst, Keith Giffen ended up getting a hold of her and ended up tying her with the Lords of Chaos and things. I think I'm missing one of the Wonder Woman issues. And of course, Wonder Woman would definitely have quite the ending to where she would be rebooted by George Pérez, and nobody's ever topped that Wonder Woman by George Pérez, in my opinion. Oh, okay. And Batman 389. Yeah, so there you go. Now, let me look around here. Let me see what I've done here. Make sure I haven't made a mess. So that was like I said, that was very quick with what I was showing you. So I highly recommend that you track down these official Crisis on Heaven Earth indexes. These go through each issue, but this is the big one, the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover edition. This is your guide. Oh, okay, so when you open this up, you know, you get Earth 2, a rundown of Earth 1, Earth 2. You get a little bit of history here, Earth 6, so you'll know what's going on. The crossover Earths, this guide goes through everything that, you know, you need to know to have a little background. And then it gives you, I knew there was a list here, it gives you all the Monitor's pre-crisis appearance. His first appearance was in the New Teen Titans number 21. All the way through DC Comics Presents number 75 that I just showed. So he had many appearances building up this. So since 1982, we actually can see that the idea for Crisis was in effect and being built up. And then this goes through each issue, giving you the covers of all the tie-ins. I think most of the ones I've shown you. All right. Oh, my fine. Well, I'll probably show you. I'll have more in here. I didn't show them all. Wow. Okay. Let me look here. Oh, guys, there's a ton more. So, yeah, wow. I knew that. Yeah, wow. Okay. Yeah, we have a ton more to show here. All right. Look at that. Yeah, we'll show those. And I just knocked two of them down. So, as we go through here, this stuff is very affordable to actually track down and to find most of these issues. As of now, at least in my experience, I'm sure there's going to be something happening here with the 40th anniversary where some of these may end up being harder to find, or who knows? You know, the speculation market of the day, you just never know. Oh, what is this? That's considered one? Well, luckily I have all the Swamp Thing, so apparently Swamp Thing 44 also uh, ties in between Crisis. And what's really cool is that these kind of tell you where the books fit into. Crisis number 2 through 4, New Teen Titans 13. You know, it just depends how deep you want to go into this, guys. See, I don't have this Superman number 413, and I've passed it up many times. Ah, yes, I'm missing one issue of the Wonder Woman stuff, right? Tells you the characters that are in them, and of course you get the index, right? So that is fun stuff right there. Let's put that to the side. And guys, we'll continue with books that I had that cross over. Now, guys, I'm going to go ahead and show this anyway, but I'm going to do a little bit of a disclaimer. This is Action Comics 553. I've dragged these books around since I was, I guess, 11. Probably try to buy an upgrade or two. But I have issues 552 and 553 of the Forgotten Heroes appearances, Dolphin and things like that, Animal Man. I don't know if these are crossovers per se, or if I just kept them with the DC Comics Presents because it's 4 issues that I consider to be one story, a continuing story there. So, yeah, who knows? Yeah, disclaimer. I'm not going to apologize for trying to keep things organized a little bit, right? All right, Superman number 415, Superman 414, the aftermath of Supergirl passing away. The Legion starts realizing that things are different. You'll see that this crisis isn't just happening in 1985, it's throughout all times. And I remember that the Legion starts having holes in their memories about history, and they accidentally unleash the Infinite Man, right? It's coming up. Another post crisis, a post Supergirl death issue is Brainiac 5 has to mourn the loss of Supergirl. Now these were fun. I think Gary Conway did these. I'm not sure, but Firestorm 41 and 42. All the planets ended up surviving, but they're all kind of touching each other a little bit, right? And by doing that, all these different timelines throughout time are popping up, and we explore those. We have dinosaurs popping up with 30th year, with future tech and things coming up. Imagine a bunch of dimensions like in Grimjack touching, and they're all touching. Well, that's what's going on through these 5 worlds in time and everything, right? So we get to see Tomahawk and Dan Hunter, Wonder Girl and Fire Girl. They explore these slow down. This issue slows down and explores that world that you see in Crisis. This issue here is the prequel about how Harbinger pops up and she gets the Psycho Pirate a little bit, right? Justice League Detroit, Justice League America. These were actually fun because, you know, I get to see them get the shit beat out of them. JSA Infinity. This is a unofficial JSA Justice League annual crossover, if you will. The Justice League satellite gets blown up for like the 100th time. The Justice League satellite, I don't know how many times in comics I actually saw that damn thing get blown up, and it was always there to be blown up again. The last time was in the Justice League America book in the 250s when Despero pops up, but it blew up here. It blew up somewhere else. It blew up in Crisis. Yeah, it just keeps getting blown up. And then, of all people, I saw Roy Thomas at a panel at Heroes Con in the 2000s. He had Earth 2. And when he came from Marvel, he got those Golden Age characters. He built up the All-Star Squadron. It had a spin-off, the Infinity Incorporated, in modern times, the second generation of Earth 2 heroes going on. And now they were getting rid of all that so they could have one Earth. So I remember watching a panel where Roy Thomas was talking very professional about it. He didn't agree where Jeff Johns was taking the GSA, but those characters are on BDC. They're going to do what they want to do. I saw another panel, flash forward, we'll say 20 years later or whatever, and he's like, they screwed me, screw them. Not his words, but that was the attitude. He was dropping dimes finally about all this, right? So you have Todd McFarlane being involved with the Crisis on Infinite Earths. He was doing Infinity Incorporated at the time. So great stuff. Stormy weather. Roy Thomas really had to work this. That's why there's so many crossovers, I guess, with All-Star Squadron and his Infinity Inc. He had a lot of stuff. I guess he had to try to line up, fix storylines. He probably had to hurry up and finish because, there was no telling where they were going to go. Yeah, finally the story. Here we go. Right. And then the last days of the Justice Society. I put that with the Crisis stuff, right? Because it answers things, right? So there you go, guys. That's a majority of the crossovers, right? And then while we're at it, there's tribute issues and stuff, right? Here's Dark Crisis, which I think turned into Dark Crisis on Crisis on Infinite Earths. There was many things spawned from this. This is a Mike Allred cover that he did as a tribute to the first issue. And then just because I'm sitting here looking at them, here are tribute issues from Infinite Crisis. They tried to go ahead and say that Crisis on Infinite Earths was a part one of a trilogy, Infinite Crisis and Final Crisis. I don't agree with that, but good for them, at least trying to recognize history and stuff, because very few people were allowed to actually remember the Crisis. We'll just leave it at that. You have to read it to see that they kind of messed up real quick after the Crisis was over. So yeah, you have a Firestorm 21. These are all number 7 issue tributes, and you get online. There are many, many, many covers that are like this before Crisis and stuff, right? What is it? A Michelangelo sculpture, I think, is what these are kind of based on. You have John Byrne doing this on X-Men during the Dark Phoenix saga. This is the one that I think a lot of people need to pay attention to. This is the one where I was like, oh, because they flipped the script here. So like I said, there's so much fun to be had with this stuff. Oh, what else we got here? Yeah, I'm going to have to put these up, right? So over the years, there's many ways to get Crisis number 1. We have the Dollar Comics number 1 that will come out. And like I said, I've collected quite a few multiples over the years, just in dollar bins, guys. I just need an issue number 4 and a number 10, and I have a whole complete second near mint set. Very fine to near mint set. So yeah, I absolutely love Crisis. This is actually one of my favorite issues where they did an interlude. We'll pick back up on that in the book here. Several copies of The Death of Barry Allen. And I got a few things to say about some of those issues here, right? So let me get some of this mess up, guys. And just bear with me. Let me get some of this up. That's a lot of comics I just got out. Man, I love looking at this stuff, guys. Now, the original crossover stuff that I've been showing you, A lot of those books are beat up because I read these over and over and over. Thus, why I have some multiple issues and stuff, and dragged them around and looked at this. I was so fascinated with this. I studied this, right? I had this Squadron Supreme, and a couple years later, it would be Watchmen. There's so many books that I felt like I actually just studied and studied and studied. So much fun. I think I'm going to leave these Green Lanterns out. I think I'm going to read those today. Hope everybody's having a great day. This is the price to pay, guys. I get it out. I got to get it put back up. Let's go ahead and get my signed copies put back in there. That was a lot of fun getting that stuff out. For real, it really was. It's great to reminisce. Maybe there should be a whole separate show on just the crossovers. All right, another way you can get these books, and you're probably aware of this, but it's about to wind up. I think they were trying to get issue 12 out for the 40th anniversary and stuff, right? But I get the foil versions. I pre-ordered them 35% off by doing this, the $5.99. They also have a version that's not gold foil variant, but for over the last, I don't know, 10 months, I believe, they have been coming out with these. I think they also did this with Secret Wars. I think there are more. It blows my mind how they did not want to look at the past a couple years ago when facsimile editions and things were coming out like this. And I'm pretty sure they were outselling, and now we have tons of them, right? So I'm getting the whole Crisis like that also. I will buy that all day long. And I'm, like I said, I'm always on the lookout for anything that has interviews and stuff from back in the day, because you will not find this stuff online. Okay, so let me get that put to the side. Okay, guys, let's check out comments, and I'll kind of walk us through some more of Crisis here if you guys are up for it. Nice covers. All the George Pérez covers are unbelievable on this. You can actually study some of them. I don't know how he got all those. He spent, oh my God, I think he'd only been in the business for 12 years by this point. I think he debuted in 1973. The Young All-Stars ever quite, the young, I'm assuming you said never. The Young All-Stars never quite lived up to the All-Star Squadron after Crisis. I had the whole run, got rid of it, and I kept the Iron Monroe issues because they tied into Philip Wiley's Gladiator, because that was Wiley, you know, that was the Gladiator's kid, you know. That series, bless its heart. Great so far. Thank you for the stream. Well, thank you, Pilgrim. I'm shooting from the hip here, man. Hey, Howler, and I want to take this point. Thumb it up, guys. I'm a little juiced. I'm a little jacked. I get excited when I go through this stuff and start remembering things. Thumb up the video, share it, let people know we're there. Leave all kinds of comments on Crisis, guys. I mean, it's the 40th anniversary of it. If you have never read it and now you're interested, let me know. If you have questions, I will back up and answer all the questions best I can. You know, on the rewind or now, it's fine. I can't believe I missed this one. It's all right, John. You were mentioned at the top of the hour. Don't worry. You know, you're allowed, sir. You are allowed. You know, you're allowed to be late. You know, Crisis, the original and the connected titles look like a cool thing to collect. Maybe not super expensive. Maybe not. That's what I mean. That first appearance of Superboy Prime, I think it's dropped. Who knows, right? But I enjoy collecting these, and only when I run across them in dollar bins. And like I said, there's probably still one or two books I still need to just go ahead and get on top of and get. Okay, this particular trade of Crisis, I say I'm so glad I document this stuff in the videos over the years, even though I'll probably never find it. But I would say about 10 years ago, I found this in an antique shop for $2. The outside's beat up, but the inside is perfect. You know, creamy. Just, you know, it's $2 for a trade of it. So like I said, if you guys have questions, let me know. Thumb up it. Be sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell. And like I said, John, you know, John here, you know, who can't believe that he missed this one, you know, you're allowed to be late. It's okay. I didn't know I was going to do this until half hour before I did it, I think. But anyway, let's get in here, right? So, like I said, these covers just amaze me. This is number 5, and it just blows me away with the heads. And I believe there's a theme going on, because when we get to issue number 6, we get one big head, so I think there's a bit more thought in there. So we get into Act 2. For you guys coming in late, I consider the first 4 issues Act 1 of Crisis. These books were designed to be dense. You could actually study them for the entire month before the second issue hit. Okay, so you got, what was it? What were they? 75 cents at the time. You got so much for your money back then with this amazing art. Sorry, guys. All right, so I just love going through looking at the heads. If you are a fan, a true fan, and I know people don't like you saying the word true, but there are certain intensities, integrity, and dedication that you give, which define what kind of fan you are. There is a difference. This is the kind of stuff that if you are a DC fan, a George Pérez fan, or just a fan of art, this can just be studied. The number of heads on this issue is just amazing to me. Right. Anyway, but beginning of Act 2, there's so many elements of storytelling that are in here that are just genius and stuff, right? We had the voice in the dark. We don't know who we're going to get a debut. There used to be a way that you would create an entrance for your bad guy or your hero, not just have them jump in there and be like, hey, I'm here, I'm new. But we have emotion, and what did Legia do? And there's a mystery to it. And this is where we start seeing time going on. The heroes are like, what the hell are we doing? And this was the fun of it. You got to see all these heroes sort of get categorized and hang out. That was just so much fun. You saw here's Batman and Robin with Earth 2 Helena, the Huntress and stuff, right? And if you knew who these characters were, it made it really cool. Now, check this out. This is what I'm talking about. Did you ever think you would see Sergeant Rock in a panel with Sinestro? That's the fun of this. The Easter eggs that come out, the little groups that come out, all the heroes being collected and meeting up. They were sent out to see what was, here's why we have to come together, guys. Here's this little panel of the Swamp Thing, so you can go back and read the crossover with the Swamp Thing, if you will, right? So much fun stuff here. So let me make sure I didn't skip it. And this is the panel that was recreated a couple years ago during the DC 52. And oh God, what was the crossover? Was it called Fear Itself? I didn't buy it, man, but the Crime Syndicate, was heavily involved. But all these characters in here. And there's a character in here that was supposed to be Plasmus from the Teen Titans, the Brotherhood of Evil, and it got turned into someone else. And I'm kind of wondering, I need to find that interview. But George Pérez had drawn it, and when the inker came in, they weren't sure who the character was going to be, so they just went for it. And I'm kind of wondering if Swamp Thing was originally supposed to be Primus or Plasma. Is that his name? Oh, okay. So many characters, so many memories, guys. But anyway, just fantastic, mixing up the characters. And then you start finding out that it's through time. There's people flipping out. This is affecting everyone. You could have been part of the crisis, guys. So much crossing over. The Green Lantern Corps, even they get blown up. So much was tied into it. And they would take time to let you know where you were at with how bad things were. The Legion was in here, everybody, Sargon was in here. And like I said, the whole point of this story was to show you where we were after the first act was over, because you didn't know where anything was going. There was no blueprint for this. Marv Wolfman did the fantastic cliffhangers, and we are introduced to our bad guy, all right, the main villain. He had an entrance. And here's where I got excited, man. Seeing the freedom fighters. Like I said, I always had a soft spot for the villains and the World War II heroes. I still do, right? So the villains build up. If you're reading the comics, you see things just keep getting worse and worse. Doom, despair, and agony upon me. You don't know where this is going. We're visiting more Earths to see what's going on, and we all got to see the return of Charlton Comics, the action heroes, properly set in the DC universe. And then we have the Psycho Pirate having all these emotions affecting all these 5 remaining Earths. So they just keep on hitting us with everything. We get heroes fighting heroes, and the Psycho Pirate here is being used, saying, you know, we get to actually see him going after these Earths that have survived, and the Anti-Monitor using him just to create chaos and stuff. Supergirl versus Captain Marvel. Just fantastic stuff. One thing after the other. You never know what's going. Pieces ensued, and you get to see everybody meeting, want to know what the hell is going on. And I told you these things. Then, of course, the greatest issue, in my opinion, number 7 and 8. It goes back and forth. But we get issues 7 and 8, and this is where they hit you with a 1-2 punch. They catch us up. We get the history of Krona, the universe. We see why the crisis is happening. As heroes die, we're getting new ones also, guys. In Infinity Inc., there was supposed to be a female. You could go back and look at the ads. She had a motorcycle. She never popped up, and they saved her for later. And I guess it was what was her name? Renee Montoya? I don't know. No, Yolanda Montez as the new Wildcat. But anyway, we got a 1-2 punch. We knew Supergirl was going to die. And this is when I figured out what they were doing. All the Earths have sent a representative to sit down and talk, to get caught up on what's going on right here on the rock beyond the silent night. And they're going to go into the antimatter universe and take out the Monitor. So this will just end. So they send the best of the best after getting the history, and Supergirl ends up dying. This was fantastic. As a 12-year-old kid, see, this should be the Justice League, the best of the best, the most powerful. Your Mon-Els, your Martian Manhunters, your Supergirls, Captain Atom, just the best of the best. And they get in there, and it ensues. There's a lot of Lord of the Rings in this. Now that I'm reading this and stuff, right? But anyway, initially, Supergirl ends up sacrificing herself and buying them time after literally throwing Superman out. And this was just devastating. And they took the time to let you have a eulogy for her delivered by Batgirl, where they set up in issue 4. They were friends, if you will. But just when you think all that's going on, you see Brainiac, you see everybody devastated. There's Brainiac 5 devastated, being consoled. Batgirl giving the eulogy, and then we get the Superman issues you need to read as it returns her to New Krypton, her body. I was always convinced that George Pérez got into such detail that I think that's how Kryptonians pray to this day, with that hand gesture. I don't know. But anyway, then we got the one we didn't see coming. The 1-2 punch, just when you think things were at its worst. The Anti-Monitor not only survived, but oh yeah, nice little tribute here. This is where the Justice League satellite blows up again. They're on the Justice League satellite. They pulled the Atom out of the jungle, and he's inside Red Tornado. Guys, hopefully you know the issue that Roy Thomas wrote and Neil Adams drew, where Ant-Man goes inside the Vision. That's what they're doing here as a tribute. And of course, it blows up. So the satellite blows up again. There they are on the, yeah. I don't know how many times the Justice League satellite blew up. You know, it didn't blow up completely, but it was, it was pretty bad. They're still able to stand around and everything. But I mean, how much was this thing supposed to take? And then you see that it is got another hole blown in it. That's the whole point. And then this leads into the Blue Devil crossover, where he gets warped out of there. But anyway, the whole point is that we get to see why the Flash was popping up in every issue, and he dies. I was like, oh my God. Now the thing about the Flash dying, about Barry Allen dying, there's two things to say real quick, and I wish I'd grabbed it here somewhere, right? Because Charlton66 sent me something very cool. But what Barry Allen is the only death that I can think of that across the decades, everybody was fine with how he died. He died a hero. He actually saved people. And it was the one time that I didn't see anybody mad or upset. He went down like a man, like a hero. Okay. And everybody always agreed that he should stay dead unless you have one hell of an idea to bring him back. And that's why everybody was fine with him being dead. Mark Waid, when he took over the Flash in the 90s and became a superstar with that book, with that Silver Age feel, he did a fantastic story, in my opinion, that really got people to notice it. He brought back Barry Allen in a flashback story where Wally West took over, called Year One. That's how he popped it over. But he did a story called The Return of Barry Allen. He finally did the story where we got the elephant in the room. And they would always sort of tease throughout, is that Barry Allen really coming back? Could this be Barry Allen from the future? Number one, because Marv Wolfman plainly stated in several interviews that he had an out for the Flash to come back. Well, his book Flash had ended with 350, and he went to the future to live with Iris. We don't know how long he was there. He never really took the mask off. When he's in that issue, and then we see him in Crisis, you really don't know how much time went by. All right, so you're playing with time travel. The other thing is that if you get the audio play of Crisis on Infinite Earths based on the book that Marv Wolfman did, you see more of what was going on with the Flash. He was actually invisible, traveling around through time, and there's things that happened in the book because he was secretly there, making it happen, being like a guardian angel, tipping the scales when they needed to be there, moving a hero out of the way, I think, or something, or helping here and there where things that shouldn't have worked. It really is a fantastic read. Charlton 66 sent me the CD audiobook, and I think I listened to that twice while I was driving for work and stuff. I wished I'd bought. That's what happens when you do these things on the fly. You know what I mean? I've got that thing somewhere. Okay, so anyway, Barry Allen dies, and that was like the thing. That 1-2 punch hit. You knew Supergirl was dying, and then you died. And I've said this before. I've got a review 10 years ago where I just did part one. I went into a deep dive about where Crisis came from, where the designs came from. That monitor was pretty much based on the High Evolutionary because, everybody's a Kirby fan. But the idea of the monitor came from an idea that Marv Wolfman had at Marvel for the Librarian. And he just took all that stuff and threw it over here. But I've got a deep dive. I'll put it in I'll find it and put the link in the rewind here in down there in the description box. But anyway, where am I going? All these memories are coming back. But anyway, that 1-2 punch, you didn't know Barry Allen was going to die. And Barry Allen, in my opinion, died, number one, because he was the start of this DC universe in the Silver Age and DC Comics Showcase number 4, I believe. That was the start of the DC coming back with a somewhat universe, right? That was the start of the Silver Age, 1958. This takes place in 1985, and he dies, and he had to die. This universe was dying, and Barry Allen's the one that started. And in Flash 123, Gardner Fox brought the Michael Moorcock idea from his Elric stories of the multiverse in Flash 123. That's where the whole mess started. So, of course, Flash had to die. So during every crisis, they started a tradition of having a Flash-centric character going through there. Return of Barry Allen, Wally West, things like that. So that's why the Flash has become a bit of a trope for a crisis. There has to be a speedster there. And if you guys, where Barry Allen died here, if you guys read Quasar, there's 2 issues of Quasar you need to get. A character, all these cosmic beings have stepped up for a space race, if you will, in Quasar, like number 19 or something. And, you had Makari from the Eternals. You had Elder of the Universe, the Runner, and some other characters pop up. And all of a sudden, this one character pops up in a red and yellow costume that's all, tattered and torn. And he's got long blonde hair and a long beard, and he can't remember who he is or his name or how he got there. But the only term that goes through his head is buried alien. Barry Allen, buried alien. So he popped over in the Marvel Universe. Speaking of Marvel, George Pérez also wanted this. Now check this out, and then I'll move on back to the book. The trivia is hitting me, guys. I just read Teen Titans, New Teen Titans, like 28, 29, 30, 31. And I want to say it's in the letter column of issue 30 or something, or an editorial or something. But if you guys read, 2 things happened that pissed George Pérez off, right? And I'm assuming one pissed him off more than the other because you didn't really hear too much about the first one. But Marv Wolfman in the letter column let some reader know that he was sorry that he didn't really like the X-Men Teen Titans crossover that happened. The one shot that Chris Claremont, Walt Simonson, Bob Wojciech, or Terry Austin did. Terry Austin, right? And he reveals in the letter column, maybe you'll like the one that Marvin or George and I are going to do. So apparently there was supposed to be an Titans X-Men crossover done by Marv Wolfman and George Pérez that never happened. But what took precedence? The Justice League Avengers book that George Pérez actually started drawing back then. There's Rob Liefeld owns the pages, the 10 pages or however many were done. And they called that off. Marvel did. So George Pérez and his eyes sort of wanted to kind of stick it to Marvel a little bit in this book. And Marv Wolfman has said supposedly that there is or George said, one of them said that there's supposedly hidden in here is the Marvel universe being blown up on one of these Earths. I don't know if that's true or not. I've never spotted it. So there's all kinds of things to learn about this, right? All right. What we got here? What do we have here? Crisis, the original, and the connected titles look like cool things to collect. Maybe not super expensive. Probably not. I've already read that one. Victor Shade, Perez was so great from the beginning. I would love to see your take on his early Avengers, Squadron Supreme, and the Avengers. I've got it. Yeah. Yeah. I've got those issues. What was that, in the 140s? I also have the Kurt Busiek, George Pérez issues they did around 1998, 1999 of the Avengers Squadron Supreme, along with the annual by, was it Carlos? Anyway, yeah, yeah. If anybody would be interested, I would not mind pulling those books out and going through the whole Squadron Supreme. I actually years ago started a Squadron Supreme issue by issue review, and by issue 2, I had so many guns. I had so many anti-gun people coming at me and stuff that it just wasn't worth the hassle back then because it's a comic book channel and it got political with what they were doing. Now, yeah, I'll probably do it. But anyway, it wasn't that I was influenced. I was already dealing with enough drama. Okay, so that 1-2 punch, you talk about the Empire Strikes Back ending where, all is done. And then all of a sudden our cliffhanger here to end Act 2 after seeing what the worlds were, what state and condition, what the heroes were fighting. I mean, how do you fight altered reality? How do you move planets, 5 planets here, and they're in here. But all of a sudden, man, we get the vengeance of God, Paul pointing up. We get the Spectre all of a sudden. And this is where I put it together. Excuse me, it was not 1958. It was 1956 to 1985. No idea why I thought it was 1958. Probably because I was really thinking, I probably thought it would be cool if the numbers were reversed. Okay. So, yeah. We leave with, why should the spirit immortal be proud? Like a fast flittering meteor, a fast flying cloud, a flash of lightning, a break of the wave, he passes from life to his rest in the grave. William Knox, 1824. That's quite the send-off for the Flash. That's perfect, right? But the Spectre is the one that's keeping all of these planets alive, even though they have spaces where the vibrational frequencies are breaking down to where they can see each other. Now, all of a sudden, this issue was not planned. George wanted this one. He wanted an issue where we see what the villains are doing, right? And this is a nice little interlude. And this is one of my favorite issues. Look at all the villains and characters that George fit in on this. Black Adam fan since I was 7 years old, and I saw him in a cartoon by Filmation of Shazam on a TV show called Hero High around 1980 on NBC, Saturday mornings, right? So to see anytime he popped back up, I was excited, right? I had my characters I like, Doom Patrol, Commandy, Black Adam, right? And to see these guys, just blew my mind, right? So this is an all-centric villain book. Return of Guy Gardner. There we go, guys. And number 9 here. Oh my God, it's so great. Okay, sorry guys, I'm just remembering my moment. This is one of my favorite issues because I like the bad guys, you know, and then this whole issue are the bad guys getting together, coming up with a plan, and they're going to get all of these planets, uh, take them all over, led by Brainiac and the Luthor team, right? And of course, we get to see what's going with our heroes, but you really need to, they're just setting up the issues that you need to go by. You know, life apparently goes on even though the universe is being destroyed. And we keep, excuse me, that's my charger on the phone. I'm going to have to wrap this up here, guys. So, yeah, we're good. We're good. We're charged. And like I said, I love the establishing shots that George gives us to remind us of the hodgepodge of time and planets and all the guest stars being interviewed. There's a little levity to this. That's Doc Magnus and stuff. Clark Kent is still reporting. Sergeant Rock is still kicking in here. I mean, they're all here. Here's where we get the Firestorm issue that I was telling you about with Wonder Girl and oh, you know, Firestorm's girlfriend. Can't think of her name now. Anyway, but this is just good stuff. But then we slowly start seeing in a sinister way. Look at this, putting the villains in. You know, that's so sinister. Putting them in the dark, showing the heroes beaten. Chemo, he made chemo scary by the Statue of Liberty with the bug, you know, ship in the water, you know, blown up. They're just taking over the United Nations. The villains go for it, man. And this is just a fantastic issue. Great stuff. Oh, man. But Lex Luthor, Brainiac go for it. Lex Luthor actually kills his Earth 2 version to make a point that he'll take out anybody if they get in the way. And the heroes have to get together. Oh my God. This is just so good. We get the death of Aqua Girl in this one because of chemo. We have the world where all the villains with ice powers got together with some Charlton characters and stuff, Punch and Julie. And then, of course, we have to have Vibe breakdancing because, you know, breakdancing was so cool in 86. Yeah, I was breakdancing like 84 and 85 with my friends. So, you know, it was over with by now. All the heroes with the green motif are there, taking over this one planet with their planets. Floronic Man. I mean, it's just Earth X is what they're after. You know, look at this Joker talking shit to Phantom Lady. Blows my mind. Such good stuff. And then all of a sudden we get issue 10 where, you know, the Spectre is going to pop up. And is he going to save the day? And then all of a sudden, to catch all the new readers up throughout the bottom of issue 10 throughout here, you get caught up several times, explained where you are through through footage. She's going through the monitor's tapes and continuing the monitor's work of recording and monitoring the universe with what's going on. So throughout the whole issue, you have two stories going on. Oh my God, this is just so good. A lot of the they just go for it. This is where they take down the villains. We get caught up. We get an inspirational speech from Uncle Sam to rally the troops, if you will, about taking down evil. And they come up with a plan to take down the Antiton monitor and to go ahead and try to save everything. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. They go back in time to the dawn of time, and the Spectre there is to catch the hand that's coming out that started all this. And then we get the new universe. It's over with. What? One planet, one Earth, and we have so many characters that survived because they went to the dawn of time, and that's why they survived. There should not be two Supermen. There should not be any more Wonder Woman. There should not be a Huntress. They're waking up trying to figure it out, and they find out that there's nothing. They find a way to check out the other dimensions with the Flash and the cosmic treadmill, if you know your DC, and there's nothing. There's nothing there. And all our characters flip out, and there's repercussions that are going on. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. I'm going to skip ahead because you need to read this. But then we get to number 12. And the Monitor, the great evil, is back. Now there's one more world to take out, and he's going to do it. And thankfully, our heroes who went to the dawn of time remember it. I have a Mighty Mouse cover that homages that George Pérez inked. Yeah, I should have got that out. But anyway, I thought it was in the box. But anyway, we get our Forgotten Heroes. See, guys, I was so happy, because I dug those old Forgotten Heroes, and we kind of see how's this going to end. There's no way you know how it's going to end, and there's one great big battle. Our heroes are there. The Anti-Monitor is going for one last swoop, and guess who ends up saving the one world, the true hero of Crisis on Infinite Earths that nobody talks about, nobody brings it up. Darkseid is our hero. The biggest bad guy ever by Jack Kirby is the one that takes out the Monitor, the Anti-Monitor, guys. We got our mystical heroes going at it. Yeah, it ends up being, like I said, Darkseid that saves it. Now, here's what's wild about this. Here's what's amazing about this. Let me find it here. They go after him. Where's it at? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering. No. He comes back, one big last swoop. And all of a sudden, through Lex Luthor, he feels an energy presence through his eyes, and it takes him down, and you find out it was indeed Darkseid. Darkseid saves the universe because it's his universe. He still has to find the anti-life equation. If anybody destroys the universe, it's going to be me. Now, here's what's wild, and I'm not going to ruin the ending. I want to leave something out there. So here's what's wild, guys. Let me switch this over. All right. It was at this point with issue 12 that we had Earth 2 Robin, Earth 2 Huntress running around. We still had Hawk and Dove over here. And the worst of worst had come. I had my villain issue, the last act. I mean, it landed. To have an ending like that land, I cannot imagine the pressure that Marv Wolfman had. And it landed. We got our one universe, right? And I was all for this. I'm like, yeah, I'm 12 years old. I'm for this. This is great. This is awesome. Oh my God, we got a villains issue. Oh my God, they killed Supergirl. Okay, killed Supergirl. But the second issue, they kill Flash. Now we're in some, now it's a roller coaster. I can feel it. I'm so glad I was reading this month to month. And you do not know the hell you go through with a series like that when you're 12 years old and you are forced. No internet, just an article, a newspaper article that you saw of it, right? I'm trying to track down issue 4 by spinner rack in a small town. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, it was so much fun. Issue 11 came. I got issue 11 on the day that a girl across the street in another apartment had a crush on me, and Mom took us all out for Thanksgiving, which was weird because this was probably the third time that was probably one of 3 times my entire life Mom took us anywhere. First one was Return of the Jedi. Okay. And then it was this Halloween. So by now, I'm 12. There's like one other thing. That was it. Parents were not very much involved, as you can tell. It was Gen X. Anyway, so we're going out, and I've got this. I'm like, Mom, I need to read this. I want to stay home, or can we just leave later? She's like, no, we're going now. I took the book with us. We stopped at McDonald's. The girl's looking at me. I'm 12 years old. The girl's looking at me with like loving eyes, and I'm like, my mom nudges me on the shoulder, like, pay attention to her. I'm like, I'm trying to read this. I'm almost done, because it was issue 11, of Crisis, of all books, right? I still have no regrets. I hate that I hurt her feelings, but I was 12. She was probably like 11 or something, right? So anyway, that was just a great time to be a comic reader. You didn't know what was coming, where they were going to go with this, and to see it. But the problem is all of a sudden you have Robin and Huntress there. You have Dove over here. They killed the Dove, the one of peace. And then a wall that crumbled and stuff fell on Robin and Huntress and killed them. And it was at that very moment I went, I don't know if this was a good idea, because after you see all these characters throughout issue 12, mixing it up, you got the Charlton characters over here, World War II, Commandy, the variety of character, even the Silver Age, as you can tell, heroes were looking cool, and we got Shazam back in there proper, and to mix it up. It was a packed DC Comics was packed with so many characters with so much potential and a little bit of history here and there, and they pulled from everything. And something about killing all the pure characters, even though I think I did understand it at 12, that now they were killing pure characters with lineage. You know what I mean? Sympathetic characters. They killed Dove, the one of peace, the one that was always trying to balance out his brother, who always wanted to think with his fists and stuff, right? Peace. They killed Robin, you know, the first teenage sidekick, and then Huntress, who was just freaking out because she didn't have a place in this world, and where was her mom? And did anybody remember her dad? Batman and Catwoman, Golden Age were her parents and stuff, right? And that was the first time I was like, I don't know if this was a good idea. You know, I was just like, oh no, because I had never had a problem following the multiverse. And I always kind of figured with the books from DC I was reading, if there was something not right, it's just because it's happening on a multiverse somewhere or something. There was a reason, right? Overall, I still think that this is the king of the crossovers. I still think that they have never topped this. And I really hated when they tried to act like it was part of a trilogy. I hung in there. They had a crossover named Zero Hour that was a continuation of Crisis, saying that they fixed the multiverse, but they never fixed time. Whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever. Good, good. You know, it was what it was. They did things where those issues went. You know, they counted backwards to zero with the numbering, so you had to read them in reverse order. Of the numbering if you weren't there to buy them off the stands brand new and stuff. For a lot of zero issues, we got Starman booted off of that out of there. Good stuff, right? And stuff, right? But they never really captured the magic. And then, you know, these crossovers became just a cash grab over the years and stuff, right? Marvel was the worst during the 2000 teens. You know, I remember Siege meant nothing, and they were already advertising the next crossover a year later during that crossover, which is, you know what I mean? So good and bad things came by, but this was definitely a benchmark in history. To me, this is something that you should have in your collection on some format, just because of the historical significance. But the biggest thing is that they pulled it off. Marv Wolfman had no real blueprint for this, and he was able to take such a massive undertaking, a massive story. And in my eyes, like I said, the way I see it, he broke it down into a 3-act story with an interlude that George Pérez wanted with the villains in issue number 9. And they stuck the landing. And to have freaking Darkseid come in at the end, the Jack Kirby character come in and, you know, pull the rug out from under the Anti-Monitor, the big bad. You know, we already knew the stakes were high. Supergirl set the stakes that they could die, but Flash showed that anybody can die. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Death was real in comics when this came out, and a lot of these characters stayed dead. Now, a lot of people try to act like this book. A lot of people listen to me. Some things I've seen online. You know how I don't know what the number of supporters are and stuff. There's people that try to point out that this has been retconned and they messed up. They messed up Hawkman, and there was things that happened afterwards. Big deal. Okay, we're talking about the work. We are talking about solely about Crisis. Okay, not how people messed it up or messed up what it set up afterwards and things that they brought back and stuff like that. There's been a lot of great things that came out. We never would have gotten John Byrne's Superman. You know, well, we may have gotten it, but you got to admit it's so much better that this happened in story and there's a reason for this to happen. Okay, this is post-crisis history, not pre-crisis history. Alan, we got the great, and because of this, we got the Alan Moore Whatever Happened to Tomorrow story. You know, we got a last story of Superman. Every legend should have a last story, their Ragnarok, if you will. We got the George Perez Wonder Woman because of this, directly because of this, right? And then this was followed up with a great 2-part book. Let me grab it off the shelf as I'm remembering it. Oh. All right, guys, these are the trades. I'll go ahead and tell you I've got 2 sets of the Prestige format to let people know where they were at with things. They came out with the history of the DC universe. Marv Wolfman and George Pérez, after doing this massive collection 12 issue story. Perez kept going, man, and Marv did too. They had the outline of what the history of the world was. Harbinger goes through here and walks us through the decades in 2 issues, right? This is so good. This is the new pre-crisis history from the ground up that came out. There's 2 issues of this, right? This one is from a friend that passed away. They auctioned off his collection. I was able to get in there and get a box with this in it. But this is the hardcover with a Sienkiewicz cover, and this is signed by Marv Wolfman and George Pérez and stuff, right? The design work that George did in this is just freaking amazing. Okay. So there's a lot of great stuff that came out and a lot of stuff you can still grab and enjoy from this, right? But yeah, this is one of the things, you know, Dark Knight Returns, Watchmen, you know, Daredevil, Frank Miller, you know the drill. Crisis should be right in there with it. Okay. Turtles, Teenage Mutant Turtles that came out a year before this should be right there with it. There are certain things that are benchmarks in comic book history. And like I said, to me, it's the greatest crossover. They've gotten more organized over the years, or they knew what to do, but this was the first. Firehawk, thank you. I gotta remember this. I gotta remember about this Swamp Thing thing. The Swamp Thing, excuse me. I gotta remember this Squadron Supreme thing here, guys. Firehawk was Firestorm's girlfriend. Thank you. I was just going blank. There was so many characters I'm looking at and memories and things like that. Oh God. Even Doomsday Clock was supposed to be a crisis. Bad idea. That whole concept was a bad idea. I feel so bad for Gary Frank because he drew his heart out on that. I enjoyed Crisis as a kid, loved the story. I hear you, John. Yeah, it definitely justified me being a comic book collector, I guess, because the stigma was still there. And it is still there. Doomsday wasn't that great. Nah. I hate even like mentioning that in the idea of Crisis in the same bubble. The endless crossovers from DC and Marvel after Crisis pretty much drove me from comics, kind of an unintended consequence of Crisis. Yeah, and I can understand that. I was a bit optimistic. You know what I mean? Like I stuck around. I love comics in general, but I totally get there's things I ditched and thought about, do I need to quit before? I'm going to read Christmas tonight. Christmas. Let me take a drink of coffee, guys. This is getting ridiculous on my part. Here we go. I'm going to read Crisis tonight. Yeah, take your time with it. I mean, savor it, enjoy it, take in the artwork of all things. I hate that there are people who weren't around at the time reading DC before this, because there's little things, like I said, you know, like I said, Geoforce in an issue somewhere, Batman the Outsiders mentioned his kingdom during World War II. We get to see that. There was like little things like that paid off just for being a reader of DC. Maybe that's not big for everybody else. For me, it is. You know, Crisis is great though, in comics and a comic fan's dream at the time. They really stuck the landing with Crisis much more than Marvel's Secret Wars. Secret Wars I thought was fantastic because it was secret. Jim Shooter fooled us all. That was really a Doctor Doom story at the end. So it didn't have in my opinion, it didn't have the massiveness of Crisis that was going on. It ended up being Doctor Doom versus God at the end of it. A whole different existential thing. What we got here? Vinny Whitlock. Good morning. Good morning to you too, sir. John saying morning to him. Thank you. That's what we got here. I love the history of the DC universe. I like how they incorporated the post-apocalyptic future and Hex with the Legion of Superheroes future. There's so many things they touched on that I absolutely love that they put together and stuff. Now, one of the other things I hated about Crisis is they wiped out Commandy and said it was Tommy Tomorrow. And so help me, I'm trying to think who came up with that idea. I read it twice who came up with that idea behind the scenes. I almost want to say it was Perez, but I hope not. But no, yeah, just doing away with no, yeah, there should all. I'm fine with Commandy being out. Commandy wasn't supposed. I'm not going to do it. That's a whole other thing. I just got All Star Comics 23 from 1944, the first appearance of Psycho Pirate. Very cool. Very cool. That is a key book I have never really thought about trying to get. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, guys, that is the place to go. That is to get off here. I am punch drunk. Uh, I did not realize that this was going to be such an emotional journey. The number of characters that I saw and thought about is overwhelming, and I am jacked up. But it's made me a little bit punch drunk. No joke. That is fantastic. That is the magic of enjoying comics and probably a little bit of nostalgia and stuff, man. So thank you guys for joining me when I drunk. How I pulled all this stuff out, got that box out, ended up remembering 2, 3 things. And yeah, share the video. If you're on the rewind, definitely leave some crisis memories down there, or any other questions you want. I can do a follow-up. And at some point, I think you should pick up History of the DC Universe by Marv Wolfman and George Pérez. Just, it doesn't matter that a lot of that stuff's either retconned or changed since 1986. It doesn't really matter. The work and the artwork is fantastic by George Pérez. Some of the design work he did, it's just it. Maybe I need to do a follow-up video just on that. I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, and like I said, to enrich stuff, grab anything you see of Crisis, Amazing Heroes. If you run across it for the backgrounds and the articles and stuff, don't just trust the Wikipedia. Just don't trust a YouTuber. Don't just trust some guy online in a comment section, right? There are things out there with comic book history and the interviews that don't make it online. That's why physical copies and these things do not go away. That's where you get absurd stuff that comes out that Rorschach was not the good guy of Watchmen. And well, I wouldn't say he was the good guy. He was trying to say that he was supposed to be the worst of the worst is not true. If you actually read the work and find the old interviews and stuff, it's one of the things I can't let go, and I'm going to quit there because we're getting off Crisis. You guys have a great day, and we're going to do these last 2 comments. I did love the pre-Crisis Earth 1, Earth 2, etc. I would buy the annual JLA, GSA team ups. Love those. Those are all. I have 2 or 3 of the trades that a set of trades came out for all those crossovers, and appreciate the live stream, Howler Prime One Collector. Well, guys, I appreciate you with your comment and everybody that watched and checked in on this and got to go down this road with me today. All right, read your comics. Everybody be excellent to each other.